So, you decided to click another Unmarked Locations video, or maybe it's your first. If so, welcome. You've made an excellent decision. Let's cut to the chase. Unmarked locations are exactly that. Locations not marked on the map or on the Pip-Boy. Now, that does leave a lot of room for interpretation and subjection, but we are following the official wiki's list. We do have some rules though. We're leaving out locations that are like just geographical locations, like these. No one cares about random bridges and rivers. We're also leaving out all locations associated with quests. Well, I shouldn't say all because we do have a few. Because we deem them worthy, but otherwise, if it's associated with a quest, it's not really a secret spot, is it? By the way, if you like all these locations and you're new to the channel, then get ready for a surprise. Because we do have all of Fallout 3's, New Vegas's, and 4's ready to go on the channel. So make sure you're subbed, because a lot of you watching are not subbed yet, and when you watch and don't sub, then your karma goes down, and you don't want that, right? Also, please like the vid. It really does help us out a lot. Alright, enjoy guys. You can find this location in the abandoned bog town. Our first location isn't anything too special, just a pre-war diner called Adelaide's, where they served coffee and ice cream before the Great War. It's got some basic resources, but nothing else really worth commenting on. The Appalachian Monorail represents a once futuristic transportation network designed to seamlessly connect to the region of Appalachia. Before the Great War, it was advertised as the epitome of convenience and speed, promising to transport residents from Watoga to various locations within 15 minutes or less, with a refund guarantee and tokens for delays. This system not only aimed to enhance the lifestyle of local inhabitants by facilitating easier commutes, but also to promote tourism by providing access to scenic views, like those from Spruce Knob and industrial landmarks such as Robco Research Center. The monorail's infrastructure was a marvel of its time, featuring an elevated track supported by numerous concrete and steel pylons, stretching from the industrial heartlands of Robco in the east to the mining operations of Garin in the west. Its route was ingeniously designed to navigate through challenging terrains, including the use of a monorail elevator to bypass steep cliffs, which showcases its advanced technology. Despite its intended purpose post-war, the monorail fell into disrepair, with sections now serving as makeshift shelters, laboratories, and even fortified positions for post-apocalyptic survivors like super mutants. By the year 2103, remnants of the monorail were repurposed by the community of the Foundation for practical uses such as housing and wind power generation. The aquatic outhouse is found in the Mire region of Appalachia, near Valley Galleria, where a street toilet and a safe entangled by strangler vines rest bizarrely in the middle of the river. The scene features the skeleton of an unfortunate individual seemingly eternally perched on the toilet seat. But what's inside the safe, you ask? A treasure of the wasteland, no doubt. 9 rolls of toilet paper. No wonder this guy stayed here so long. The archery set is an unmarked location tucked in the forest region of Appalachia, positioned midway between White Powder Winter Sports and the top of the world. Under the transmission tower, archery equipment and targets have been arranged, with the odd side of a skeleton using a pumpkin as its head propped against one of the targets. Be careful with this area though, because it is usually home to a deathclaw. Between the tower and its neighbor to the north is a minor radiation fissure, and to the east, just below the cliffs, is a lead deposit. It's a cool little location to check out. The Ash Heap Marketplace can be found southeast of Hornwright Testing Site number 2 in the Ash Heap region. The makeshift market features an overturned trailer draped with red sun sails, surrounded by an array of wooden crates, barrels, and wicker baskets. The presence of broken display cases, a park grill with food, and a radio playing Appalachia radio feels like a time before the bombs fell. Despite the ruin, functional elements like a cooler, a cash register with caps and a stash, and the trailer's interior containing a dead settler, a first aid box, and a locked safe hint at the location's past use as a trading post or a refuge. The marketplace's vicinity is surrounded with dangers of the wasteland, inhabited by creatures like cave crickets, feral ghouls, and robots, making it a risky venture for scavengers. However, the site offers potential rewards such as a recipe by the radio, a weapon mod in a display case, and a stealth boy within the trailer. Some pretty decent stuff if you want to take a little detour and check out this marketplace.
The Barrel Burial is tucked away in the Savage Divide area right next to Sugar Grove. Here you'll find a skeleton sprawled out on the ground wearing what looks like a lab coat, and next to him there's a gas mask. It's like he was in the middle of some shady business when things went south. Now around him, there are these barrels. Not just any barrels, but ones that someone tried to bury. They're covered in stacks of old cash. It's like whoever was supposed to be hiding these barrels got paid in cash, but didn't quite finish the job before kicking the bucket. There's even a truck nearby with more barrels in the back, like they were in the process of dumping them all. It's also a reference to Breaking Bad when Walt buries a bunch of barrels full of money in the desert. The bathing skeleton. It's exactly as it sounds. You'll find it located underneath a power pylon west of the camp. It's a bathtub with a skeleton in it, and it's full of soap, 24 bars to be precise. It's an excellent place to get some oil. Other than that, there's an unusable mattress and a broken fridge and nothing else. Berkeley Springs Castle is a location situated in the Berkeley Springs West area. This castle, which overlooks the town from its northern vantage point, features a design reminiscent of a medieval architecture with a tower and stone battlements. However, accessibility to the castle is somewhat restricted. The main floor is boarded up, making it initially seem off limits. You can gain entry by a scaffolding staircase at the back, which leads to the second story. This level offers a room for exploration where you can find minor loot and musical instruments. The exploration continues as the scaffolding extends to the castle's roof, where a weapons workbench is conveniently placed, possibly for players to upgrade their gear while enjoying the view over Berkeley Springs. The castle is advertised by a local iBot as a historical site worth visiting, suggesting it holds both cultural and strategic value within the game's setting. It is part of a minor quest, and like Mason said in the intro, we're going to try and avoid locations tied to quests. But the quest that's linked to this location just has you take a picture of the castle, so I think it's still worth showing. Berkeley Springs Spa, located in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, was a pre-war establishment renowned for its beauty treatments. Owned by Edna since at least 2075, the spa was innovative in its approach to customer service and cost management. Edna invested in a Mr. Handy robot, which she affectionately named Beckham after her teenage dog to enhance productivity. Despite initial success, the spa faced challenges like Beckham's mechanical errors, such as using a loofah instead of pumice scrub, which displeased clients. The spa also ventured into making its own honey treatments more cost-effective by having Beckham gather honey directly from natural hives, a solution that worked well due to Beckham's immunity to bee stings. The business climate, however, grew tougher by early 2076. With rising operational costs, Edna was forced to cancel seasonal discounts, which led to significant customer backlash. She expressed frustration over her clients' reactions, hinting at the financial pressures of running the spa. The spa's narrative took a turn when Edna modified Beckham to fear bees for her amusement. Unfortunately, the spa ceased operations following the Great War, its legacy fading until the area was repurposed by the Blood Eagles in 2103, with Beckham still performing his duties, now potentially aided by vault dwellers. The Bicycle Graveyard, an unmarked location in the Mire region of Appalachia. South of the Gulper Lagoon, it's essentially a small rundown shack packed with a collection of rusty, dilapidated bicycles in various stages of decay. This site also features an assortment of scattered junk, including 10 random vacuum tubes. I think someone got bored either before or after the bombs fell and decided to just hoard a random amount of the exact same item. Wait, this feels familiar.
Big Papa Mo's Lip Smackin' Sandwich Shop is located in Beckley. It's a notable unmarked eatery known for its cranberry sandwiches. Despite being physically inaccessible in the game, its backstory is rich with rivalry and intrigue. The shop was established by Charlie, who directly competed with Sal Jefferson's Sal Grinders, located just across the street. The two owners had a history of rivalry dating back to childhood, which intensified when Charlie's Sandwich Shack, offering identical fare, quickly outpaced Sal's in popularity. The secret to Big Papa Mo's success lay in their unique cranberries, sourced from a spot in the cranberry bog. However, Sal's investigation revealed a dark twist. These cranberries were actually irradiated, unknowingly poisoning the customers. This discovery set the stage for a potential showdown as Sal, fueled by both the rivalry and a sense of justice, plotted his next move against Charlie. All this info comes from the terminals located at Sal's Grinders, just in case you were curious. So yeah, it's just a building you can't enter, but the story surrounding it is pretty interesting. The Billboard Junk Camp is located in the forest region of Appalachia, specifically along Route 88 southeast of the Black Mountain Ordnance Works. This settlement is situated beneath a large Nuka-Cola billboard and enclosed by wooden walls. Inside, you can find practical amenities like the armor workbench and a weapons workbench, alongside a radioactive hazard from toxic barrels and a notable yellow silo. Scattered around the camp are various resources including piles of woods, crops like potatoes and mute fruit, and lootable junk, making it a handy spot for scavenging. There was a point in time when the developers were going to stop people from putting camps here because of the strategic location of the Organ Cave, but they decided against it. So it's still a really good spot if you want to put a camp down here. This is just northeast of Anchor Farm. You'll find a crashed PT-00D biplane, which is split in half. And the pilot, well, he's located just a few yards from the front of the plane. Not a great landing for him, I would say. The Birdhouse Ridge is an unmarked location situated near the Hornwright Summer Villa, positioned east-southeast of the villa and north of the Fisher Site Lambda. This spot is characterized by its unique setup along a ridge, featuring numerous bird cages and red bird houses hung from the wooden beams, which feels strange when you compare it to the rest of your surroundings. The ridge serves as a simple campsite, offering basic amenities for survival such as a sleeping bag covered by an outhouse door, a metal table with a first aid kit, and a wood pile for potential crafting or warmth. Scattered sacks around the area provide random junk items, making it a minor but potentially useful stop for scavenging. The Birdwatcher's platform is designed as a vantage point for observing wildlife, situated west-southwest of the Crosshair. This spot is cleverly hidden beneath a large tree on a mountain ridge, offering a secluded and elevated perspective ideal for birdwatching. The platform itself is uniquely decorated with jars of luminescent liquid hanging from the branches, which creates a cool glow. At one end, next to the walking cane and a pair of binoculars, lies the Birdwatcher's note, providing insight into the platform's purpose and perhaps a glimpse into the life of its creator or user. Make sure to pause if you want to read it.
The Bog Channel Shelter is located just north of Quarry X3. This site stands out due to its makeshift nature, where remnants of human habitation are evident in the form of a blue tarp stretched over a lowered channel serving as a shelter. Inside this basic camp, one discovers the remnants of its last occupants. Two skeletons, one of which is eerily holding the skull of the other. The shelter contains several items of interest for scavenging, including a wooden crate, a sack, various junk items, and some glowing fungus. There's also a stealth boy on the ground and a mini nuke held by one of the skeletons, which makes you wonder what exactly even happened here. The Brotherhood Graveyard southeast of Huntersville is an unmarked location serving as a burial ground for fallen Brotherhood of Steel members from the Battle of Huntersville. This solemn site is accessible when traveling down State Route 107 past a checkpoint with the tank. The graveyard itself is organized with graves laid out in neat rows, highlighting the military precision of the Brotherhood. Some graves are marked with helmets and headwear, symbolizing the fallen's allegiance and role. Notably, among the graves are those of Squire Hannah D. Silva and Paladin Swafford, each marked with notes bearing their names and the Brotherhood's motto, Ad Victoriam, emphasizing their sacrifice and dedication. The presence of unsettled remains, dog tags, and an unfinished grave with a soldier in power armor leaning against a tree adds to the area's somber atmosphere. The graveyard is also home to floaters, so keep an eye out. The Bunker and Beehive, located west and slightly south of Old Cremora Mines. This site features an open woodland clearing where random encounters might occur, making the area unpredictable. Adjacent to this clearing, one can find a tree hosting a beehive, where you can harvest honey with the risk of encountering an aggressive bee swarm, which will likely happen. South of this, there's an intriguing sealed blast door set into the landscape, hinting at an underground bunker. However, this door cannot be opened and the bunker remains inaccessible, resembling similar structures seen at Black Mountain Ordnance Works, but lacking any identification or means of entry. It's an interesting little area, and I wonder if the devs have a plan to do something with the bunker in the future. If you watched the Fallout 4 location video, then this might feel familiar. Carhenge is located northwest of the Bailey family cabin, and is a creatively constructed but unmarked site fashioned from rusted stacked cars that mimic the ancient Stonehenge. This setup not only serves as a unique landmark, but also features a makeshift throne, created from a leather car seat positioned within a central car husk, which players can sit on. Surrounding this throne are tires contributing to the theme, and there's a random encounter possibility here, suggesting it might not always be a peaceful visit. Despite its structural ingenuity, Carhenge offers minimal practical value, with only a large toolbox available for looting. There's also a cult of a Mothman totem nearby. Fallout 4 was the first game to add a Carhenge, where you would encounter a super mutant behemoth living in it. It's pretty cool. 76 had 2 Carhenges when it was first released, but the other location was replaced by a different structure. Who keeps making these things? The Kemen Hoop Shack is south of Camp McClintock, and this location features a small shack up against a rock wall, highlighted by a basketball hoop on its eastern side, a remnant of a past competition between David and Trevor, where David absolutely dominated with a 51-4 victory. The shack itself is quite basic, sporting a dark couch inside, and outside, a downhill wooden platform with 3 basketballs signifies the long-range shooting spot used in the contest. The site includes a chemistry station, useful for crafting, and other scattered junk items, including a rad bear. Interesting, this location can also serve as a waking point for characters who've overindulged in Nukashine in some weird hangover type of thing. How is Trevor so bad though?
Situated on the border of the Savage Divide and the Mire lies the Clifftop Vista Cabin. This rustic cabin perched on a cliff offers a panoramic view of the Mire's expanse. It features a small agricultural setup with corn crops to the southwest, basic amenities like a water pump and a weapons workbench, and an outhouse teetering on the cliff's edge. If you'd like to take a dump with a dose of adrenaline, then this is perfect. Inside the cabin, one finds a modest living setup with a stove, bunk bed, and a makeshift kitchen, and a dining area, along with a safe for those adept at picking locks. Outside near a scarecrow is a burial mound corresponding to Mire Treasure Map number 1. Since the Wastelanders update, this cabin has become the solitary dwelling of a settler. East of Graninger Farm lies another wreckage of a PT-00D biplane. The site is scattered on a hillside and includes fragmented remains of the aircraft and also the skeletal pilot, who's propped against a tree. The area around the crashed biplane is dotted with chem boxes, revealing itself as a scavenger's haven. Here, one can find scattered psycho and stim packs. It's not much, but it's cool to stumble across. Right between Point Pleasant and Marigold Pavilion, you'll find the cultist totem. Around this totem, there are 7 statues or figures with horns, all tangled up with tree roots, forming this archway that looks straight out of a horror movie. And right in the middle, there are candles flickering and dead bodies of cult members just lying there, like they've been sacrificed or something. Most likely the cult of the Mothman doing some weird stuff, though the whole area seems to have this dark, almost magical pull, because even small animals are drawn to it, like they can't help but wander in. It's not weird to find cult things in 76, but an unmarked spot feels a little different. The Dolly Sods Wilderness Ranger Station is located in the Mire region right here. This site offers a glimpse into the pre-war life with its well-preserved 2-story cabin, which is accessible by a path from the park entrance and features a tinkerer's workbench on its porch. Inside, the cabin's layout includes a spacious ground floor with a living and dining area warmed by a fireplace, connected to a kitchen. Upstairs, there are 3 rooms, a bunk bed area, a private bedroom with Ranger Trujillo's terminal, and a locked storeroom holding unique loot like a mole costume and potential weapon plans. You'll find lots of interesting loot in here, including an almost done note, a potential Vault-Tec bobblehead, and various magazines. The surrounding wilderness is home to creatures like bloatflies, blood bugs, feral ghouls, and rad roaches. The end of the road is a site centered around the wreckage of a truck and its trailer, which can be found to the west of Sunnytop Station and north of Monongah Mine. The scene depicts the aftermath of a crash where the vehicle slid down a hill after the bombs fell. This location holds historical and narrative significance due to its backstory involving a criminal element and personal tragedy. The layout of the end of the road is relatively simple, but it has a rich story. The crashed truck lies just off of Route 95, with the trailer accessible via a door that requires no lockpicking skills. Inside, you can find an assortment of junk, various consumables, a first aid kit, and a duffel bag. There's 2 skeletons, one a female with handcuffs nearby, which suggests a captive, while the other, a male, is actually handcuffed to a trailer pole, hinting at an interesting end for the criminal. A note titled "For Vincent" found next to the male skeleton deepens the story, revealing that the criminal was involved in a dire threat against Vincent's daughter. The note says, "Vincent, I warned you. I warned you and look at what you did. What happens next is on your head, not mine. I hope you kissed your daughter goodbye last night. Sounds like something bad went down."
The Explosives Shrine is another fascinating unmarked location, situated on the eastern edge of Savage Divide. North of the National Isolated Radio Array, the shrine is positioned near a cliff. The layout of the Explosive Shrine is both simple and symbolically charged. At its center is a makeshift effigy, constructed from sticks and adorned with a carved pumpkin that holds a detonator box, suggesting either ritualistic approach or perhaps a warning against the dangers of explosives. This effigy is encircled by orange crates, each with an assortment of explosive ordnance like mines and grenades. The arrangement implies either a place of respect to the destructive power of these weapons or a cautionary tale about the volatile nature. We have zero info on who or what made this, so I guess you can make your own headcanon for this one. The Fairway Treehouse is north of the Dolly Sods Lookout and south of Gulper Lagoon, in the treacherous mire. The treehouse itself serves as a makeshift refuge, previously occupied by a trio of wasteland survivors named Larry Richardson, Seth, and another person who is illiterate. In terms of layout, the Fairway Treehouse stands out due to its strategic design amidst the swampy terrain. The tree it occupies is enveloped by strangler vine. Access to the treehouse is a long walk away, leading to an initial platform with an ammo box. Beware, a tripwire trap guards the next section, leading to another platform where a footlocker awaits. The final ascent brings players to a spacious living area complete with various lootable containers, junk for crafting, and a dirty mattress. You can also find the Scope Out the Crash holotape found near a skeleton at the treehouse's top, and there is a potential to also wake up at this location if you get wasted on Nukashine. Game of Thrones is positioned just south of the Sunshine Meadows Industrial Farm, although I will admit this was a bitch to find. This site is not your typical post-apocalyptic setting, but rather a quirky Easter egg offering a snapshot of the bizarre and funny consequences of life in the wasteland. On a hillside, two skeletons are staged in what appears to have been a duel, likely under the influence of Nukashine, an in-game alcoholic beverage known for its intense effects. These skeletons, seated on toilets, are surrounded by the items of their last stand. Weapons like a 10mm pistol lie at their feet, and the empty bottles of Nukashine and wine that fueled their final moments scatter the area. If you're confused, basically these guys had a drinking duel while sitting on some thrones, aka their toilets. It appears that neither of them won in the end, as they're both dead, because in the Game of Thrones, you either win or you die. The Gardener Shack. This spot, located beneath the cliffside southeast of the infamous Wendigo Cave, offers a glimpse into the more peaceful pre-apocalyptic life against the harsher post-war environment. The layout of the Gardener Shack is both practical and atmospheric. It features a small green shed surrounded by various flora, including aster, carrots, tato, and wild carrot flowers, suggesting attempts at self-sufficiency or perhaps a love for gardening. Okay, maybe no to the last one. Inside the shack, you might find basic amenities like a mattress for rest, a wooden crate, and a wood pile for warmth, along with wood-burning stove and a radio, hinting at the owner's efforts to reach out. Outside, the presence of a skeleton near the entrance, accompanied by a fridge and a lawn chair, appears to be someone who tried to live out their days in comfort, only to succumb to the dangers or perhaps the loneliness of the wasteland. Another skeleton near an empty safe and barrels on the right side, plus a third on the rocks above, suggests this location might have seen its fair share of struggles or perhaps was a refuge for those fleeing from the nearby Wendigo Cave's horrors. Might not want to linger here too long, I hear the Wendigos come out at night. The glamping site can be found close to the pumpkin house. Here, objects of pre-war comfort like a bungalow camper, a picnic table, and a cooking station are all found here. Within the camper, a skeleton on a bed frame alongside a first aid box tells a story of someone's last stand or refuge, including mine as you'll see here. A porta potty, a motorcycle, and scattered junk items suggest either a hasty retreat or the attempt to maintain some sort of normal life. Nearby, a recipe found by the cooking station hints that maybe this occupant was part of the culinary arts. Also, you might not find the recipe here. It's a random loot spawn, so you never know what you're gonna get.
The gnome's allotment is exactly what it sounds like, positioned south of Fort Atlas near Seneca Rocks. The spot features a small raised shack overlooking a unique garden area. The layout includes the shack, which, while empty except for some bed frames, stands watch over a garden that's anything but ordinary. The garden is managed by 3 garden gnomes and a quantum bear statue. This garden uses unconventional planters, sunken vehicles including a blue picker-up truck, and a rusted off-road vehicle, where crops like aster, carrots, silt beans, and potatoes thrive. Makes you wonder if when nobody's looking, the toys come to life and keep on gardening. Maybe it's even creepier to think that some weirdo shows up and keeps gardening, but then leaves and lays out all these gnomes. I guess it's not that far-fetched. The wasteland is full of weirdos.
Work of the chupacabra.
Grafton High School can of course be found in the middle of Grafton. Before the apocalypse, it was more than just an educational institution. It was a hub of youth culture, evidenced by sports achievements, particularly around the football team, the Grafton High Monsters, who claimed victory as state champions in 2076. The main building features a long hallway with classrooms, some untouched by time, others cluttered with debris and skeletons. Access to the upper floors is blocked, preserving the first floor's haunting atmosphere filled with lockers to loot and the gymnasium, which was repurposed as a polling station. Outside, the football field lies next to a toxic lake, with stands for fans now empty. Some might complain that this shouldn't be on the list because Grafton is marked, but I think it's significant enough to warrant its own map marker, and apparently the files think so as well. In that same vein, we also have the Grafton Pawn Shop and Police Department. I won't dive into those too deep, but I figured I'd let you know they were there. The Halloween Horror Hamlet near Hornwright Estate features a house adorned with Halloween decorations like hay bales and pumpkins, with vehicles outside hinting at past inhabitants or visitors. You'll find several houses here that are inaccessible except for one, but they do have some interesting exteriors, with a pumpkin patch that sells pumpkins and all the Halloween decorations. It's cool they have so many Halloween locations in 76, because as you guys know, the bombs fell in October, so there should be a lot of Halloween stuff left over. The Hilltop Pylon Camp is found in a little spot in the Toxic Valley area of Appalachia. You've got a tent perched right under a towering pylon, almost like it's holding up the sky. Inside the tent, you'll find a Mr. Fuzzy doll chilling on a chair. Around the camp, there's a dead scientist skeleton and random other Halloween decorations. And also, the place is decked out with flamingo lawn decorations. I don't know why. You can grab some useful stuff here too. There's an ammo box, a first aid kit, and even a recipe lying around. Oh, and there's an old car parked outside. Just watch out for the mole rats. They do like to pop up when you least expect it.
Hopewell Cave Cemetery is an eerie spot right above Hopewell Cave in the Savage Divide. You get there by following a dusty dirt road from Highway 63 near the Pumpkin House. Along this path, you'll spot an old car that's basically become part of the graveyard scenery with tombstones all around. The cemetery itself is small but packed with stories. There's a Union soldier's grave behind a black fence, his hat resting on top. Next to him, there's another grave, maybe for an asylum worker, marked by their hat. What's weird is that many graves have been dug up, with skeletons laid out in bizarre patterns, like some sort of sick art project. You might run into all sorts of nasties here: feral ghouls, mole rats, mongrels, mutant hounds, or even super mutants if you got a camp nearby. A lot of the headstones actually used to be intractable. Well, not really, but they had a button prompt to interact with them, which would have been used in a new event. But they scrapped that, and you don't get the button prompt any longer. The ice cream rest stop in Skyline Valley is like stumbling upon a piece of Americana gone nuclear. This place is just off the beaten path, southeast of Naked Creek, and it's got that classic drive-in vibe, with an ice cream stand but no seats because, you know, drive-in. The parking lot's got cars and trucks just sitting there, waiting for ice cream that'll never come. It's a hot spot for random encounters, so keep your caps ready for whatever shows up. There's loot scattered around, and check the cash registers and the fridges because they might still have some food or cream. Nearby, there's a truck with a trailer, and if you manage to pick the lock on the fridge there, you might find some canned goods or even a recipe. But it's not just about the food, there's actually lore there too. You can find Bee's Diary page number 3 if you're willing to trek a bit through the woods, following a trail to a tree stump where the ranger didn't quite make it. Oh, and if you're into collecting, there might be a bobblehead in one of the truck beds, and a magazine under the counter at the stand. Pretty solid loot for a location not even marked on the map. Jay Schramm's house is near Morgantown and just north of Bolton Greens. It's akin to walking into a horror movie set, but for cat lovers' nightmares. The place belonged to Jay Schramm, who apparently had a thing for hunting cats, which is just disturbing. The house itself is a mess. Everywhere you look, there are plastic cat bowls and traps that look like they've been repurposed from seafood hunting. The kitchen's got pots of what seems like cat stew, which is... yeah, let's not go there. Upstairs is even worse. The place is falling apart with holes in the roof and on the floor. But here's where it gets really weird. Right by the front door, lit by the only working light in the house, there are cat head trophies. But for what purpose? Outside, you've got some crops if you need, and a quick harvest, and a metal hanger that's locked up tight, probably holding more creepy stuff. It's called the Ollerfiles Farm in the official guide for 76, which I hope I said right. And it's a fancy way of saying cat lover, but in this case, it feels more like a cat hater's haunt. Definitely not a place you'd ever take your cat or pet for a visit. The house's owner, Jay Schramm, is a reference to former Bethesda level designer Justin Schramm. Although he left the company in March 2017, he was credited with special thanks to Fallout 76. I'm sure he's glad they named this place after him. Maybe he didn't like cats, or maybe they didn't like him too much. Lakeside Grill is an old school diner spot you'll find in the Toxic Valley not too far from Clarksburg. You've got your Nuka-Cola machine right outside the front door, and inside there's a porta diner. It's one of those places that feels both out of time and perfectly in place within the game's post-apocalyptic setting. You can almost imagine the conversations that used to happen over here, with milkshakes and burgers alike, now replaced by silence of the wasteland or the occasional scuffle with whatever critters have taken over. Marsh Cottage is a dilapidated trailer in the Cranberry Bog, near the General Steakhouse. It's literally falling apart, with one half sinking into the ground, surrounded by strangler vines. Inside, however, it's surprisingly intact, and you can still use the front door. There's a truck outside with a toolbox, and the trailer itself offers some loot, from the kitchen and bathroom in the stable side to a dresser and nightstand in the broken half. Behind the trailer, there's a phosphate deposit if you're looking to gather raw fertilizer. Also, calling it a cottage is pretty hilarious.
Middle Mountain Lake sits in the Savage Divide, just north of Middle Mountain Cabins. It's a spot where the memory blackout from chugging Nuka Shine might hit you once again. One of 36 such places, in case you were wondering. The lake's serene, set on a plateau, but it does tell a sad tale. Two people, one a fisherman and the other a ranger by their outfits, tried their luck here. They ended up drunk, looking for adventure, and tragically drowned. Their skeletons lies a warning against mixing booze and water activities. Nowadays, scavengers have pitched a tent across the lake, always with a bottle of Nuka Shine inside, tempting fate, or maybe just looking for a strong brew. Moonshiner's Overlook is situated in the Savage Divide, west of Toxic Larry's Meet and Go. It's where a family of moonshiners spent their last moments before the bombs dropped. The place is a rundown shack perched on a cliff's edge, with a homemade moonshine still inside next to the toilet. Because, why not? Inside, you'll find 3 skeletons, 2 slumped in chairs, and one who's literally fallen out of his wheelchair. It's a interesting snapshot of their final moments. With a view to die for. Literally. Mount Blair Coffee Shack is a hobbled together coffee spot in the ash heap, just northeast of Welch Station. You'll find a long metal path leading up towards Mount Blair Train Yard. It's basically a corrugated iron hut that once served as a coffee shop, now surrounded by old protest signs. The only resident left post-apocalypse is Murgle, a tabby cat, hanging around the remnants of this once bustling coffee haven. Mountainside Cabin sits in the Savage Divide, near where the railroad tracks run between RNG Station and the White Springs Station, close to the Vantage. It's another one of those spots where Nuka Shine might wipe out your memory. This cabin's in pretty good shape for being out in the wild. Inside, you got basic furnishings, a table with an empty Nuka Shine bottle, chairs, a doorless fridge, a bed, stove, radio, and a bearskin rug. There's also some decayed art and a flag. Outside, you'll find 2 pickup trucks, one with a canoe and a rusty SUV perched near a cliff. There's also a radstag carcass and a target for shooting practice hanging behind the cabin. Nearby, there's an outhouse with a skeleton inside. Another skeleton on another toilet. Are you laughing? They need you to laugh at the skeleton on their toilet joke, guys. The New Appalachia Bank is right at the New Appalachian Central Train Yard in the Savage Divide. It's where a botched heist pre-war left the place in ruins, with bodies and chaos in its wake. The bank's now part of a building that's seen better days, squeezed between Highway 63 and the train tracks. Inside, it's a mess. Part bank, part post office, part ticket lobby. Now just mostly rubble. You can navigate through via a staircase or just climb over the debris. The vault on the first floor has been ransacked, but you might find a duffel bag and some bones. Upstairs, there's an office with some loot like an employee notice and a Huff Warbler teapot. On the roof, there's cooking area and junk, plus a little scene with teddy bears and a bird enthusiast remains. And yeah, a dead raider's hanging over the edge. The place is now home to feral ghouls and scorched, so watch your step.
The New River Gorge Ropes course is part of the New River Gorge Nature Trail and Adventure Park, and it's tucked away in the forest region north of the New River Gorge Resort. It's a fan-favorite obstacle course designed for pre-war folks to test their agility and nerve, now a bit of a post-war playground. To get started, you climb some stairs to a platform where you'll find the first aid boxes to loot. The course challenges you with various obstacles, such as shaky bridges, wobbly wooden platforms, and balancing on logs suspended by wires. It's quite literally a physical challenge, but at the end, you're rewarded with loot like caps, 8 items, and possibly an agility bobblehead at the top of the tower. Interestingly, this place has a story. Tumblin' Joe once lived in the tower, but met a sad end, falling to his death. There's also an observation deck for a scenic view or just to catch your breath. Fun fact, one of the first NPCs added to 76 was old Tumblin' Joe. I mean, he isn't alive, but you could at least find a body. North Mountain Oratory Camp is just north of North Mountain Lookout, near Road 98. It's set up like a stage for speeches, complete with a podium, a US flag, and a skeleton of what looks like the speaker, clutching a moonshine bottle and a 10mm pistol. Around him, more skeletons sprawl among chairs and spilled milk bottles. The scene suggests a grim tale. The speaker poisoned the milk with rat poison, handed it out, then took his own life. Pretty dark, even for Fallout. Oh, and of course, it's one of those places where Nukashine might mess with your memory, with an empty bottle left on a crate, hinting at a past revelry or perhaps a final toast to oblivion. The old storehouse is northeast of Abandoned Mineshaft 2 and southwest of Nuka World on Tor. It's an old warehouse with a strategic view of the area, surrounded by hills. Inside, it's crumbling and cluttered with debris, but there are some raider bodies lying around, left by Jack Woodhouse, an ex-Blood Eagle who killed them out of paranoia. The place is dotted with Lone Wanderer motorcycles, and yes, that is what the motorcycle brand is called. You can go to the second floor for some loot, including Jack's journal, which recounts his brief but violent stay here before moving on. If you want to read it, then make sure you pause. It's an interesting little tale. Party Time Diners is perched on a mountain in the Forest region, just east of the Tyler County Fairgrounds. It's a dining table set up on a rocky overlook, surrounded by yellow and blue balloons. It's like stepping into a scene from a bizarre tea party, with cooking and dining items scattered around. And the table itself is decked out with board games, consumables, and a variety of hats, from cowboy to chef, witch to bowler. This place ties into the ecological balance quest, and I know we're not covering those types of locations, but it's one of the better locations, and I didn't want to leave it out. It's a funny nod to the Mad Hatter's Tea Party from Alice in Wonderland.
You've made it to the 50th location in the video. It's not anything special, but because you're here and still watching, I just wanted to say thanks. We appreciate you guys that watch all the way through. Leave a thumbs up in the comment below and we'll know you made it here. Thanks again, guys. The Prehistoric Bones Camp is an unmarked site in the forest region just north of Alpine River Cabins. Originally, it was an archaeological dig featuring the bones of some ancient creature. You could find a few skeletons, some digging tools like a shovel and pickaxe, and a worn out fedora by one of these skeletons alongside lootable containers. The spot also holds significance for those working on the Pioneer Scouts Possum Badge, as snapping a photo of the fossil here with your ProSnap Deluxe camera contributes to the archaeology challenge. Prepper's Pylon Paradise is a unique setup in the mire, just south of the sunken church. It's essentially a bunker constructed from old train cars stacked beneath a high-tension transmission tower. Inside this makeshift fortress, you'll find a kitchen and living room in the first car you're entering. Going downward between the cars, there's practical stuff like a washer, dryer, and a bathtub, plus a way in or out. The last car features a locked safe, which requires picklock 3, a cozy bed, and a kid's corner with a tiny classroom and bunk beds. This place is a prepper's dream, stocked with minor loot and healing items. Keep an eye out for a potential recipe in the kitchen area as well.
Priblo's Curios is an unmarked location northwest of Summersville in the forest region of Appalachia. Priblo's Curios is a boarded up shop specializing in selling merchandise relating to Appalachian cryptids. A variety of strange looking curios sit on crates on the porch, which is the only part of the building which is accessible. There's also a mailbox and a truck beside the building, and there is a footlocker in the back of the truck as well, and one can find a bit of loot here, such as an invoice, the catalog of curios, the Beast of Beckley holotape, a letter to Calvin, and a delivery route map. The Raider Outhouse and Moat is a structure built on top of a pond acting as a moat at the edge of a mountain located southwest of the National Isolated Radio Array. There is a wooden bridge that leads to the titular outhouse, though it is defended by a locked door and surrounded by Raider decorations. The corpse of Old Jim lies in front of the door. After unlocking the door and crossing the bridge, the outhouse provides a fridge with a cap stash and a Nuka-Cola Quantum and a Nuka Cherry, as well as a tool case on top of it. There is also a steamer trunk here with a chem cooler on top of it. The only piece of notable loot, however, is next to a Raider corpse by the door. In the Cranberry Bog region of the map, the abandoned bog town Red Rocket was once a nuclear coolant replenishment and service station before the Great War, but now sits abandoned and uninhabited. When approaching the town from the west, the Red Rocket station is situated on the right-hand side next to Adelaide's Diner on the outskirts of town. The location contains one stash and a weapons workbench in a shack behind the station, near a large wood pile. A camp has been set up on the roof overlooking Highway 65. It is accessible by a makeshift ramp with a bear trap immediately as one steps onto the roof. A second bear trap is located closer to the front edge. However, a bear trap might be the least of one's problems when approaching this Red Rocket. 2 raiders lay dead in the corner next to a large pile of tires as well, and odds and ends such as blocks, a fuel tank, clown figurines, and 6 atomic rollerballs can be found here. The figurines are set up like bowling pins, with a rollerball interspersed within them. A derelict picker-up truck sits beyond the fuel pumps and on the highway.
Like many Red Rockets, the Flatwoods Red Rocket is too decaying alongside its surroundings within the Flatwoods. The gas station is situated in the south side of town. The building is filled with detritus along with random loot. It has a stash box within it and a tinkerer's workbench on the outside. A skeleton can also be found on the ground next to a recipe. On the roof, the word help is spelled out using wooden planks. A small campsite is located here as well as the skeleton of an unfortunate Nuka Shine user. The roof cannot be reached through normal means, but it is possible to wake up on top of it after drinking Nuka Shine and blacking out. The marsupial mutation and or jetpacks can also be used to reach the roof. Also, next to the head of the skeleton lying beside the counter inside the Red Rocket station, Delbert's Mountain Hawks recipe can be found. A small Red Rocket gas station just off of Interstate 59, built next to the Giant Teapot roadside attraction, one will find the Giant Teapot Red Rocket. Southeast of the Teapot, there's a rusted pickup truck with a number of explosive canisters in the back, sitting next to the inoperational gas pumps outside. Inside the building are assorted junk and consumable items, including a box of sugar bombs on one of the shelves. There is a stash box in the corner of the station. There's also a weapons workbench behind the building next to the secondary boiler pipe, which needs to be protected as part of the tea time event. If you're feeling lucky, you might even find a weapon mod underneath the counter, a magazine in the blue box sitting on the bottom of a shelving unit, or a Vault-Tec bobblehead below the cash register. The Morgantown Red Rocket station is slowly decaying alongside the surrounding buildings. The original filling station building is filled with a bunch of random loot. There's also a campfire outside alongside abandoned barricades. In front of the station, a blue picker-up truck is parked next to the fuel pumps. The Seneca Rocks Red Rocket is located next to the Seneca Rocks Visitor Center. The Red Rocket fueling station once served people touring the famous Seneca Rocks. After the Great War, this area was the site of a battle between responders and raiders before feral ghouls took over. The filling station has a makeshift walkway up the rocks into the roof, and inside, a stash box container can be found. Between the visitor center and the Red Rocket station is a honey beast sitting in the parking lot. It will typically attack both a player character and the nearby pack of feral ghouls, which could be led by a high-level glowing one. Also, 2 armor mods can be found located inside this Red Rocket building. One under the counter near the cash register, and one on the roof of the Red Rocket building on a makeshift table. Last of the Red Rockets, I promise. Honestly, these are more interesting than the Red Rockets found in the other Fallout games. The Valley Galleria Red Rocket gets its name since it's found sharing a parking lot with the Valley Galleria shopping center. The area has sporadic loot and a parking lot full of volatile nuclear vehicles. Inside the station, there's a weapons workbench and a stash box. Across the street, a steamer trunk is located upstairs in the northwestern end in the Valley's boutique store.
The River Treehouse is located northwest of Valley Galleria on the central shores of the river. This location's central feature is a large tree in the water that has been overtaken by strangler vines. A system of wooden walkways spiral up the tree with several boats, crates, and skeletons entrapped in its vines. A locked explosives crate can be found along the walkway as well. At the top of the treehouse is a dirty mattress and a duffel bag next to a toilet and bathtub. There's also a grill and a table filled with various cooking-related junk items. On the first table, encountered while going up the walkway, players will find a potential recipe. It's also plausible one would find themselves waking up here after a night of consuming copious amounts of Nuka Shine. A destroyed lime green car sits before the patio of the Riverside Cottage, which is a location west of the fast travel point to the Nuka-Cola plant and south of the plant itself. After walking up to the patio and into the building, the doorway leads into the main room. A Mr. Handy lies destroyed on the kitchen floor and in front of the oven. The refrigerator has had its door removed as well, and turning right from the front door leads into the bedroom. A single sheetless bed lies in the middle of the room, and a baby crib is next to the window. The northern bedroom wall has collapsed and exposed the bathroom. A dead radroach holding a walking crane and wearing a bowler hat sits on the toilet. The location contains several references to the final Pam, a character from the Fallout 4 episodes of the web series Monster Factory by Justin and Griffin McElroy. And yes, this is the same Elroys that dug deep into the Smiling Man's or Indrid Cold's lore we mentioned in our Smiling Man video. The house even has a similar layout to the player character's pre-war home in Fallout 4. The name Pam can be found spelled out in wooden blocks and on top of the TV. There is a dapper, wedding-ready radroach in the bathroom and a reference to the character Roachy. Pam claims that her real son is a coffee tin. The same item can be found in a crib along with a box of Abraxo cleaner, which Pam suggested feeding to baby Sean as a snack. There is also a hammer on the nightstand between the crib and the large bed, alluding to Pam's idea to take a hammer and fix the baby, because she thought Sean was too small. The nightstand on the opposite side has Pam's original shirt and fashionable glasses sitting on top. And yes, I had to take the glasses. The destroyed Mr. Handy is a reference to Codsworth, whom Pam calls her three-eyed metal husband. The baby bottle in the fridge alludes to the existence of Trash Hulk, Pam's organic husband, as Pam suggested feeding him with a bottle before shrinking him to roughly the size of a baby. A few details added to the game in later updates read as alluding to or inspired by the works of the McElroy brothers, podcast comedians and prominent West Virginians. The trio were honorarily considered mayors of Huntington for one day in 2017 when they held a parade to improve public perception of tarantulas. They are joined in some projects by their father Clint McElroy, a successful radio host active in the area since the 1970s. A world object, a workshop, or maybe an unmarked location. Atop Mount Blair stands the Rockhound, a massive ore excavation platform that was once used by the pre-war industrial company Hornwright Industrial for strip mining. After the Great War, however, the drilling rig sits abandoned atop Mount Blair. Created by Hornwright Industrial, the EXC-97 Rockhound bucket wheel motorized excavator was advertised as an integral part of the lucrative world of strip mining. The Rockhound was rated to move over 11,000 cubic meters of earth per hour and could operate with a crew of only 12. Each of the buckets on the massive cutting wheel was cast from solid black titanium, ensuring every cut would remain accurate and deep. Coupled with 4 ignition reactors that utilized proprietary technology developed by Hornwright Industrial, it was theoretically capable of working indefinitely, as long as these reactors were supplied with ignition cores. As a symbol of Appalachian industrial might and acumen, and by extension of the Hornwright family, it was widely advertised to attract investors and advance the idea of a fully automated Appalachia. The Rockhound's strip mining of Mount Blair had a devastating environmental effect, polluting the entire region and turning the resource-rich mountain into a desolate stretch of land nicknamed the Ash Heap. Furthermore, the construct didn't really work as effectively as theorized, and ultimately drained the ignition cores in just 3 minutes. After intervention from headquarters, the power was dialed back to increase longevity. In addition, the skeleton crew could not effectively oversee a machine of that magnitude. Standard safety checks missed major malfunctions, such as faulty seals on the main fluid reservoirs, leading to over 6,000 gallons of hydraulic fluid being discharged into the soil of Mount Blair. The company deducted the expense of repair from the crew's paychecks. Moreover, the company's demands led to a 24-hour operation mode, a third work shift, and the need to change the wheel buckets every 3 days to maintain the profitability of the operation without regard for the environment. During the massive riots that erupted after Atomic Mining Services forced miner out of Welsh in October 2077, miners took to Mount Blair and seized the Rockhound. For 8 days, the miners held out, striking and demanding a right to work until the National Guard finally cleared out the last of the rebels off the Rockhound. Echoing the events of the Battle of Mount Blair over 150 years earlier, the strikebreakers took out the miners and returned control of the Rockhound to Hornwright. The massive machine rests atop Mount Blair, surrounded by the conflagration created by the strip mining. It is divided into 3 distinct decks connected by an elevator, and the interior is part of the world space rather than a discrete interior. The lowest deck contains the crew quarters and mess hall, the ignition reactors used to activate it during the event, and the command center up front. There's also a cabin at the front for the driver, and the deck connects to spans or gantries over the side tracks, which were used for storage and as strong points during the riots. The stairs from here lead to the second deck above the balance arm and the excavator arm in front. The topmost observation deck can only be reached by elevator and offers minor loot. The rotating bucket wheels at the end look like teeth, but are actually literal buckets, filling up with harvested ground on the upward move and empty on the downward turn. These are also not damaging. If players stand in the way of Rockhound's rotating buckets, they will be pushed underground and out the other side without any damage. They can also ride inside the buckets as the wheel rotates. The Rockhound's workshop can be used by the player character to dig up ore for personal use. In order to harvest ore from the rig, one must first have ownership of the workshop located in the utility platform of the back of the rig. They then must proceed to the main control station in the center of the rig, and they must access a terminal near the control panel. Accessing reactor tech, they gain the ability to craft ignition cores that are needed to reactivate the drill platform. There are 4 reactors on the rig. Once all the cores are placed, the player character then must head back to the control center and press the button on the center console to activate the rig. Once activated, they must defend the reactors from constant attack for a total of 30 minutes. Ore is collected in a container on the counterweight supporting area on the back of the platform. Developers likely place this in the game since riots and open warfare between citizens and worker militias and government and corporate forces around Mount Blair echoes the events of the Cold Wars in West Virginia and the Battle of Blair Mountain, the single largest labor and domestic uprising since the end of the American Civil War. Interesting.
Located east of Ripper Alley and slightly south of the West Tech Research Center, the Memorial Shrine of Rosalind Jeffries is located at a cliff's edge, overlooking the eastern end of the Savage Divide and into the Cranberry Bog and Mire regions. A Deathclaw will reliably spawn next to the shrine. Aside from what we'd call an unmarked monument, if you head to this location, you'll find Rose's AI program, which is a holotape and quest item in a chem box in front of the shrine. If you need a sacrificial altar, you can find one unmarked in the forest region of Appalachia, located directly west of the Billings homestead. This location consists of a Cult of the Mothman altar, established on the rocks along the coast of the Ohio River. 3 cultists will always spawn here, worshipping the altar. The corpse of a settler has been placed underneath the altar as a human sacrifice. The Safecracker Shack was the home of an Appalachian who took safes and unlocked them in their trailer, and it's located between the Anchor Farm and the Tyler County Fairgrounds. It's unclear if they operated before or after the Great War, but a separate unmarked location, the Safecracker's Lament, found west of the Groves family cabin, has 3 skeletons surrounding a safe, indicating that these individuals met their end there. In 2103, as humans returned to Appalachia, a group of 3 raiders took up residence in the shack. They can be encountered at the trailer, attempting to break into the safes. The shack is a small trailer in the woods of the forest, surrounded by rubble, a pickup truck, and some low-level hostiles attacking the raiders. There are some makeshift walls surrounding the trailer, and the walls on the eastern end have 4 porta potties propped up against them. Just outside of the home is a junk pile next to a hill of tires. Inside the trailer, a bed is on the left close to a kitchen area with a cooking station. Several open safes litter the shack, as well as various lootable containers. There is a separate supply room on the other end of the trailer, holding an assortment of tools and a tinkerer's workbench. Outside of the supply room in a walled-in yard are a desk and 15 lootable safes, some with varying picklock levels. There's also a soil sensor for the quest Ecological Balance directly behind the trailer. By the way, a potential armor mod can be found on a shelf across from the bed.
In the Mire region, Scoot Shack was the home of Scott Scoot Conroy before the Great War, where he lived with his 12 cats. This shack also acted as his base of operations for cryptid hunting. When discovered, it is filled with cats and a terminal associated with the quest, That Sinking Feeling. Amidst the Wild Appalachia update, 3 pieces of loot could be found here. CH Monthly January note on a shelf, letter to L, a note on a desk next to a terminal during That Sinking Feeling which cannot be picked up. From Ray is also a note found between on the ground, the wall, and the bookshelf. The secluded cave is an unmarked location in the Savage Divide region of Appalachia, somewhat south of Spruce Knobs Lake and Channels. The exterior of the cave features a knocked-over wheelbarrow and some boxes. Inside, character Aubrey Willem has created a small house for himself, including a generator for light, a bed, and a tinker's workbench. Introduced in the Wastelanders update, Aubrey's note can be found and available only if Aubrey Willem is convinced to quarantine himself during the quest Here to Stay. If you ask me, it's kind of a boring location.
The Skeleton Raft is located in the Mire region of the map. The nearest location is the Valley Galleria. This location is one of those 36 places where the effect of memory blackout due to Nuka Shine can transpire. A fragment of a wall or floor is unknown how it fell in the middle of the river near the Valley Galleria. A skeleton lies on the raft, surrounded by a cleaver, a box, 2 empty bottles of moonshine, and an overturned cross. There's also a second skeleton dangling under the bottom of the makeshift raft, and at the bottom lies an empty bottle of Nuka Shine. A little to the southwest, there's that outdoor toilet on the water that we talked about earlier. The whole scene seems a little silly, but that's why we enjoy the Fallout universe. The sludge trailer consists of a small metal trailer and a nearby pile of sludge, with disposed tires and an off-road vehicle. The area is populated by opossums roaming the area surrounding the trailer. 2 toolboxes can be looted in the exterior of the trailer, one of which is near a picker-up, while the other is near a dirt bike on the ground. Inside the trailer, there's a bed that can be slept in, as well as an explosives crate to search. On the right side of the trailer is a TV set and lawn chair, with a teddy bear sitting in the chair. A perfect place to wake up to a cold glass of Nuka Shine. Solomon's lower pond consists of a radioactive pond where a super mutant behemoth will always appear. On the edge of the pond, there's a parked pickup truck with several radioactive barrels and an open footlocker with some anti-rad chems. The pond has 2 distinct landmarks: a large blue pumping machine that is also surrounded by radioactive barrels, as well as a small rock on the side of the pond next to a tree, where a skeleton sits in a lounge chair next to some assorted items. At least this guy's last moments are assumed to be well enjoyed, before becoming one with the radiation blasts.
Nestled east of Haven Church in the Mire was a settler cottage and bunker, once inhabited by Georgia and her mother Madison. Georgia, a child enamored with playing rather than chores, often organized tea parties for her teddy bears, ignoring her tasks like berry picking. Her mother Madison, overwhelmed by the dangers lurking outside, insisted on Georgia retreating to their bunker frequently, fearing the worst each time her daughter was out of her sight. However, by 2103, the cottage had become just a memory, now a farm managed by a settler engineer. And the remnants of Georgia's life, a teddy bear tea party in the attic, and her diary pages hint at a childhood cut short by the harsh realities of their world. The cottage, now in ruins, stands with a bunker hidden beneath some farming machinery, storing Madison's journal and lootable containers. North of the homestead, players can find a playground surrounded by picket fences, where Georgia used to play, adding to the narrative of a child's simple desires for play amidst danger. An unimplemented quest would have deepened this story, allowing players to decide whether Georgia could enjoy the outdoors or should remain safe within the bunker. But it never happened. Once a pre-war military outpost, the South Mountain New Crater was an unmarked location in the Savage Divide located at the end of a small dirt road, starting near the military checkpoint at the southern side of Huntersville. With the Test Your Metal update, the former site of this location was repurposed for the Foundation outpost, where Event Eviction Notice takes place. The South Mountain Nuke Crater holds skeletal remains, a destroyed building, some crates, and the rusting remains of a vertibird that crashed after the bombs dropped. Near the crater itself is a small military camp with APCs and off-road vehicles parked around it. The site is highly radioactive and contains the ruins of what was once a large building, now completely obliterated. Deathclaws or megasloths may spawn in the vicinity of this location, so players beware. Players can also expect to find a disgruntled note on a cinder block on the southern end of the crater and a hazmat suit next to it, although when being candid with you, what I found were super mutants. The Spruce Knob Boat Rental once loaned boats and fishing supplies to visitors and tourists. The shop was owned by Salty Sam, a person with a surly attitude. In 2103, the building was occupied by Rocco after he was exiled from Foundation. Here, Rocco made a deal with Lev to give the raider group guns, ammo, and supplies stolen from Foundation in exchange for a detonator and ensuring the raiders wouldn't break into Vault 79. Spruce Knob Boat Rental has one floor and a basement, consisting of the rental shop and a personal residence. The entrance to the building leads to the store section, and the walls are lined with nautical oars, boats, and fishing equipment. The store counter is situated in the corner of the room, surrounded by old maintenance tools. Behind the counter is a small set of Dutch doors leading to the residential area. The residential area consists of a living room, a small bedroom, and a kitchen. The living room is largely empty and has a sizable hole in the wall leading into the bedroom. The bedroom contains a sleeping bag next to a lit lantern and a safe, and on a small wooden side table lies a note titled "To Meg and Crater Freaks." The kitchen has a staircase leading down into a flooded basement containing various tools and parts used in the maintenance of the rental equipment. If you ask me, this place could have done without the basement. Before the Great War, Summersville Lake was a reservoir created by the Summersville Dam on the river. In 2082, Raider David Thorpe destroyed the dam, letting the reservoir flood through the nearby city of Charleston in what would be called the Christmas Flood. Summersville Lake subsequently became a dry lake bed. Near the center of the former lake is New Gad, a post-war settlement constructed on the ruins of the town of Gad, which has been submerged by the reservoir. The lakeside cabins sit on the north shore, Overlook Cabin on the east shore, the Summersville docks on the west shore, and the destroyed Summersville Dam is to the south. Beside the wreckage of a sailed ship, a skeleton with a pistol has its feet encased in concrete, alluding to a mob-style murder that took place before the war, somewhat reminiscent of the dead bodies that are also found in current-day Lake Mead. Another skeleton with hands and feet bound, tied to cinder blocks, is found to the west. Fun fact, the Summersville Lake is an actual reservoir in West Virginia created in 1960 with the construction of the real-world Summersville Dam. The swallowed town and its sunken church just northeast of Haven Church as consumed by a freak sinkhole before the Great War. The site was condemned and largely abandoned, save for the occasional park ranger who would come to make sure no urban explorers were trapped in the ruins, such as cryptid hunter Scott Conroy, who fell down the hole and broke his legs. Park ranger Kevin later fell into the sinkhole while he was checking for trapped persons, but remained uninjured. While both Kevin and Scott trapped with no way out, they survived for a time by subsisting off moss, the occasional bug for protein, and some muddy but relatively safe water. Scott's legs also healed, but due to the little wood available being too damp to construct a proper splint, his legs healed in malunion, leaving Scott immobilized, save for crawling with his arms. The Great War would come and pass, and both Kevin and Scott were still trapped in the tunnels of the sunken church. A raider from the Gormans by the name of Mickey also fell into the pit that trapped Kevin and Scott. Mickey, however, eventually killed Kevin by choking him in his sleep and forced Scott to eat his remains. Scott soon lost his mind and also killed Mickey and ate his body. Trapped in isolation and racked in guilt, he was transformed into a shrieking cannibal mutant by the radiation seeping into his lair. After the catastrophe at Vault 94, Strangler plants tore through the region, redefining its geography. They lifted the sunken church out of the ground enough to allow explorers to enter and exit. Sometime thereafter, the cult of the Mothman constructed a lesser altar at the buried pulpit. 27 years after the Great War, the thing formerly known as Scoot Conroy continues to haunt the area of the sunken church. Curious explorers who venture inside the dead-end tunnel may find themselves trapped by this ravenous husk. Entering the church through the bell tower allows for following the path to the sacrificial mound. Close by is a burial site where bank robbers have begun exhuming the coffins to bury a safe. The safe is locked with a key that can be found in Berkeley Springs. This location was adjusted for a new quest titled That Sinking Feeling, and thus came new loot such as the Day 1 note found on the ground at the start of the tunnel beneath the church building, the Day 82 note on the ground near some church windows in the sunken building, and a New Day note on an altar in the sunken building. But players beware, I do hear the Wendigo still lurks around the corner.
Did you ever drink too much Nuka Shine and end up in a place you weren't familiar with? If so, you may have woken up in a weird, tiny location fitting for a teddy bear. Hence, the Teddy Bear House, which is located atop a large flat rock beneath a power pylon. It is laid out like a typical living room, with two teddy bears watching a television from a couch, a nearby dresser with an empty bottle of Nuka Shine beneath it, and a metal bucket propping up a plunger. The house has a locked front door and freestanding door frame, and a mailbox out front. But despite all these amenities, it has no walls or a roof. At any rate, I would love to find a roaming teddy bear walking around the wasteland. That would make for a unique cryptid. The Brown House is a building and interior within the Rapidan camp in the Skyline Valley known as the President's Home away from home. First, a quick backstory. The Brown House was built during the administration of Herbert Hoover, the 21st President of the United States of America, to serve as his and his wife Lou Henry's summer retreat in the Shenandoah National Park. It was named for its color, being a brown wooden cabin in reference to the similarly named White House in Washington, D.C. In fact, there's even a plaque stating, "Welcome to the Brown House." It was the home of President Hoover and his wife Lou while they stayed at the Rapidan camp. The house gets its name from the color, like how presidents live at the White House. It was only fitting to name their summer home after the house color. When Hoover's term ended, he donated the camp to the executive wing of the government by use for future presidents, and as such was kept under guard by the US military. Over the years, a Mr. Handy Gumley was assigned to be its caretaker and groundskeeper, programmed to give out historical facts when prompted. It also continued to serve occasionally as a presidential retreat, although no presidents had visited the cabin for quite some time. According to Gumley, several cabinet undersecretaries were stationed at the Brown House on the day of the Great War, but he has not seen them in a long time. At some point before the war, a bunker complex was built underneath the Rapidan camp, with an entrance to the bunker in the basement of the Brown House. Access to this bunker was strictly overseen by the military, with a proper government ID needed for entry. However, as of 2105, the bunker entrance has been blocked, and remote access to the bunker is disabled. The Brown House is an instanced interior, meaning that some of the rarer items found inside it will always be available, such as gray and gold pocket watches and an undamaged American flag. The Brown House contains several inconsistencies related to the placement of objects and set dressings. The family portrait of the Singh family from the Free States is inexplicably found in two different locations, at the front entrance desk and upstairs in the president's office. A pen holder with a decorative plate reading Vault Dweller of the Year is found at both the front entrance desk and the president's desk, despite there being no apparent connection between the location and vault residence. Two Army training graduation papers can be found in the upstairs side office to the west, despite being a quest-related item from Camp McClintock. The rug featuring the Great Seal of the President of the United States faces the president's desk. In the real world, the presidential seal is placed outwards towards the visitor, as a means of greeting them, since the president knows themselves.
The crater core, also known as the core, is the remains of the center of the crashed Valiant 1 space station, which appears in the Wastelanders update. Before crashing, the space station resembled a wheel. The hub and spokes of that wheel formed the upper level of the core. Meg Groberg can be found in the center hub, while Gale, Ra-Ra, Caleb Fisher, and Johnny Weston can be found wandering around the rooms in the spokes of the core. A central spire staircase leads down to a den of excavated rooms. Surge, Barb, Lev, and the Raider Punk can be found in this area, though not all are friendly. Lou will also return to this area after the quest Cheating Death is completed. Surge, Lev, and Fisher will leave once From Russia with Lev is started. Weasel and Mortimer will inhabit the area following the completion of Secrets Revealed, although Weasel will only appear if the Raiders version of the quest is completed, while Mortimer will appear regardless. The Raiders salvaged some kind of large projector or transmitter from the wreckage, which Caleb called the Space Beam and Munch called the Angel Piss Project. Interestingly enough, a number of details at this location seem to relate to the Cult of the Mothman. A partially buried art sculpture can be found here, wrapped in roots. No text or dialogue acknowledges it. Also interesting is the only taxidermied Mothman in the game is found in Meg's quarters. Meg has no obvious affiliation with the occult, however, the core is full of animal remains in general. Munch identifies some bones belonging to a whale, and this set of whale bones is displayed above the gold press machine in the style typical to a Mothman shrine. Outside, a set of whale bones is laid out atop Ari's workspace too. An owl shooting target can be found in the basement, identical to one seen in Point Pleasant. And the cult often incorporates pre-war owl knickknacks in their shrines. Creed, an NPC within the core, mentions that the Cult of the Mothman sees the Raiders' turf as their rightful holy land. However, there was no obvious indication of cult activity at the original version of the crashed space station. A small abandoned shrine ravaged by plant growth could be found to the south, but the site has since disappeared. If you decide to find your way to this unique location, you may end up coming across Lou's goodbye note, a lit cigar, and a lead at last, which is given by Oscar Gonzalez after starting the quest Hell's Eagles. The Crater War Room is located far behind Ari's shop at the crater within a disjointed, upside-down, broken section of the crashed space station in the Toxic Valley region of the map, and was first introduced in the Steel Dawn update. Upon entering the interior, there are two paths, one straight ahead and one to the left. The path to the left leads to a small room with a bed, two desks, and a weapons workbench alongside some assorted machinery and boxes. The path ahead leads to an excavated cavern and the actual war room, where Burke, Pierce, and Sheena are planning their raids. Albeit, they won't be the kindest to you if you try to talk to them. There is a table in the actual war room littered with beer bottles. A jukebox sits in the corner of the room, and a brewing station is set up along the left wall. An assortment of supplies, weapons, and containers are situated behind a gate, though this caged area is normally inaccessible. The gate itself has a map of Appalachia and a corkboard attached to it. At one point, it was possible to clip through the gate by running forward between the map and the corkboard, where all the items and containers behind the gate could be looted. Other loot, and perhaps the most notable, included Marcia's diary, which could be found within her backpack right behind Sheena. Thomas Farm, a pre-war property owned by Bill Thomas, is located in the Savage Divide region of Appalachia and is an interesting unmarked location that is sombering to say the least. Driven by desperation to save his dog Winston, diagnosed with large cell lymphoma, Thomas drew on his Vault-Tec University medical training to develop a cure. Using an aerosolizer to expose Winston to the treatment, Thomas unknowingly spread chemicals throughout the area, resulting in mutated albino-like deer roaming nearby. The farm features fields of taters, wild blackberries, and corn. And there are two main buildings, a barn filled with hay bales and barrels of glyphosate, and a mostly ruined farmhouse to the north. The barn has stairs leading to various junk items and lootable shelves. Outside, the aerosolizer stands as a reminder of Thomas's tragic experiment. Inside the farmhouse, clues for the unsolved Best of Intentions quest are scattered. A relocation note is posted on the doorframe, and a veterinary diagnosis sheet sits on a coffee table. In the kitchen, players can find the quest-related chemical testing kit. Nearby, Mr. Thomas's terminal and a chalkboard note attempts of 2 prior cures, with a third glowing cure jar nearby. There's a small stash of sleeping bags and ammo boxes across the way as well.
We debated on adding this to the list, but if you head southeast of the mountainside bed and breakfast, you'll find a long expanse tethered to both sides on a cliffside, secured with pieces of wood and a cinder block, otherwise known as a tightrope. Fair warning now if you're scared of heights. In front of the rope is staged with a camera, seating, and a vendor cart behind safety railings. One section of the railing has fallen, found below alongside a chair on a ledge. On the ground far below the rope is a skeleton, suggesting someone wasn't so careful when making this traverse. Which seems silly, since one can sprint across the rope without falling. Why don't you give it a try? The toxic pond and wreckage is positioned southeast of Greninger Farm and southwest of Philippi Battlefield Cemetery. Here, a dilapidated house has partially sunk into a glowing green pond, which gives it an otherworldly feel, a vibe reinforced by the toy alien found in the house's bathtub. An open safe lies submerged where the house's floor used to be. Inside, you'll find a rare alien blaster alongside the rusted key, a crucial item for unlocking a shack atop Freddy Fear's House of Scares. This kicks off a scavenger hunt that ultimately leads to the TNT Dome No. 2 at Black Mountain Ordnance Works, where you can finally find ammo for your newly acquired alien blaster, which, by the way, doesn't pack as big as a punch as one would expect from an otherworldly weapon. Under the I-65 bridge, after a medical van crash on Route 65, a doctor and a patient took shelter here, leading to a grim attempt at an impromptu surgery. Evidence of the operation remains: a surgical saw, scalpel, and 2 test tubes suggesting the use of anesthetic. All of this lies alongside the skeletal remains of the doctor, the patient, and a severed left hand, all undisturbed since 2102. While Deathclaws stalk the upper bridge, the river below holds a trove of scattered chems, offering another glimpse into the desperation of the Fallout world. Valley's boutique can be found on the 2nd floor of Valley Galleria. This stylish store once offered an impressive selection of fashion, including Dorna Gordon and Joan Cloy dresses, Quadriga cloth, Gilbray fabrics, and the popular quad ankle socks. It's just one of the stores in the Galleria that I wanted to show off. I won't do the rest, but you should definitely come check all of them out because there's a bunch of unique signs and stores in here. It's pretty nifty.
Van Lowe Taxidermy in Lewisburg is a unique mix of mystery and eerie charm. Inherited by Shelley Van Lowe and eventually sold to a company after her brother Calvin's mysterious disappearance. The taxidermy shop, spanning 3 floors and a basement, served as both store and home, while hiding a secret laboratory that Calvin used in pursuit of the elusive Sheep Squatch. In Van Lowe Taxidermy, each floor offers unique treasures, adding to the haunting backstory of Shelley and Calvin Van Lowe's family business. The first floor, which serves as a taxidermy store, is littered with clues and items. On the counter sits a noise complaint next to a terminal, hinting at the secrets within the building. In a display case, a strange bone is housed, unlocking a quest line if you haven't already started Lying Low. Nearby, a locked storage closet holds additional stock, accessible by either picking the lock or using the taxidermy storage key, conveniently found upstairs. Upstairs, on the 2nd floor, you'll find a more personal touch. Shelley's life with Calvin holotape sits on a desk in her room, and 3 mounted cat heads rest above the desk, vital for a Pioneer Scout's badge. Meanwhile, the kitchen counter hides a cryptically titled "Where is it?" note, contributing more layers to the eerie tale. On the 3rd floor, Calvin's room and study are filled with signs of his cryptid obsession. His desk hosts a Robco customer support note and a robot parts model, while a connection board is plastered with notes on cryptid sightings, such as unsolved missing girls and sightings at Thomas Farm. A dresser holds Dear Wolf, a personal note from Calvin, and his wastebasket contains empty milk bottles. In the basement, however, things get darker. Behind the washer and dryer is a secret entrance to Calvin's lab. revealed by pressing Laundry Day on a wall calendar. In the lab itself, a chemistry station and Tinker's workbench hosts assorted spare parts and schematics for a sheep squatch robot. Here, items like the assembly password and a Soltron circuit board await keen-eyed players. The lab also hides a safe behind a mounted wolf head, unlocked by placing the strange bone from the first floor in its mouth. Among other treasures, you'll find Calvin's behavior programming holotape on the terminal, adding the final piece to the puzzle of his fateful encounter with the Assaultron. Each piece of loot within Van Lowe taxidermy pulls you deeper into an unsettling story, turning this location into more than just a place for scavenging. It's an unfolding story of obsession, loss, and survival, and perhaps may mark the best unmarked location on this list.
The Wild Wolf Homestead, our final stop on the list of unmarked locations. You'll find this spot in the Savage Divide along Route 93, right on the edge of the ash heap. It's tucked between the Hornwright Estate to the north and the Garahan Mining HQ to the west. The homestead itself has some interesting and spooky touches. There's a locked up gray house, a bright yellow garage, and a surprisingly intact greenhouse with mute fruit plants and a couple of pumpkins for grabs. The vibe here is rugged, complete with wood piles, logs, and a rusty picker-up truck with a wooden crate in the back. If you wander east, there's a random windmill, and to the south, another old semi-truck without its trailer. Nearby, you can scavenge junk items on a DIY table, and in the corner, there's a weathered bike. As a bonus, if you're doing the Mr. Messenger event, Wild Wolf Homestead might be on the destination. Just know you'll be walking into a battlefield. Scavengers and super mutants both hang out here, and they won't hesitate to clash. Holy shit. If you made it to the end, then thank you. Like, seriously. That was a hell of a lot of locations. We really appreciate you guys watching. Keep an eye out for more location videos, lore videos, and other random Fallout and RPG stuff. Remember guys, enjoy time is never wasted time, and we'll see you in the next.